how much we go into each other's offices, talk to each other, WhatsApp each other. It's actually far more than my recollection of previous governments, but then bear in mind I wasn't the minister, I was at that point the civil servant.
One of the most important points Dr. Jaishankar makes in his book, The India Way, and I think that's something which all of us need to reflect on, is that growing up and in our readings, we spend so much time reflecting on what American thinkers in strategy, war, or British thinkers, or German thinkers, maybe recently even Chinese thinkers have been writing, and there's so little reflection on Indian writings, Indian strategy, and you bring that out in your book. And I want to use this opportunity for you to reflect on that larger point, that a lot of our thinking on foreign affairs, strategy, war, typically comes out of the Western world, and not so much out of our reading of the Mahabharata, Ramayana, which you keep going back to in your book, and that's something which I found to be a real eye-opener, and I was wowed by how you brought it all together to present the India way as it is right now. And why is that so important to you, Dr. Jaishankar?
Well, it's something which, I wrote it in the book, but it's something which I had thought about for a long time, partly because for me, Mahabharata has always been probably the greatest sort of strategic book ever written. There isn't a situation in the world you encounter which doesn't have some kind of analogy out there. And it's something which, from probably my early teens, you've been absorbing it. But I wrote it at that point of time. In fact, interestingly, one person with whom I discussed a lot of that was Sushma Swaraj. And I wrote it at that time, partly because I felt that India has changed. If you look today, at our politics, at our personality, at the aspirations, at actually how much, in a sense, deeper, broader our system has struck roots. The widening of people, where are people drawn from who today are setting the debate, discussing the big issues of the day. I think we have become a much broader, much more diversified, much more truer reflection of our country. And such people, I felt, would readily relate to an argument which was long inside me, which is, please look at your own history, your own culture, your own tradition. There is so much out there. And if you draw on it, you will actually get, because remember, one of the most obvious sort of practices of my trade is to find that analogous situation. If you tell someone, so-and-so in a foreign country is just like so-and-so in India, they get it, okay? Immediately,
So what did you tell someone recently? So-and-so is who, and who is he similar to in India? Let's see what you do. Go for it.
It's X and Y. Okay. So, but that's what you do, and that exercise was part of that.
Minister, we're almost out of time, but I definitely wanted to ask you. This is a government that's reputed to be very high tempo, hardly takes any breaks. The Prime Minister as well. You are in one of the hottest seats in this government. Apart from reading and writing, I know you read a lot, I know you write a lot. Apart from that, do you get a lot of breaks? Do you take breaks? How do you unwind, we'd like to know.
Breaks like, you mean off days?
Off days and to relax.
What are you talking about, Shiv? What's that?
No, look, I think today there's so many things happening in the country and around the world that even if somebody gave you an off day, you wouldn't take it, because you would have stuff to do, you'd be involved in it. So, I do all the things which normal people do, I take a walk in the morning, I play some sports.
He beat you at squash, Shiv. He beat you at squash even now.
Yeah.
One last question, sir. We spoke of the India way, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. I want to take you to Chinese military texts and strategy. And I'm very curious to know from you, because if you read Chinese texts and strategy, they talk of, the warring kingdoms talk of two scenarios. One is power that is rising, and I refer to modern day China, which believes its time has come and therefore starts asserting itself over neighboring kingdoms. The other is the most fatal mistake a power can make. In its rise, it believes it's risen sooner than it actually has. That leads it to make fatal errors. And I draw you now to what's happening between China and, say, India along the LAC, which leads to counterbalancing between other kingdoms. In the modern context, say India, America, Australia, Japan, coming together as a counterbalance force against the rising superpower. And I want you to look now into the future and tell us, 30, 40 years from now, would China have made the fatal mistake of the warring kingdoms of having believed that its time has come before it actually did?
You'll only know that answer 30, 40 years from now. No, I mean, first of all, as India, I have a bigger aspiration and frankly a bigger existence than be just counterbalance to other people. Okay, I have my own interests and how I'm going to pursue it, and often that may lead me to make some decisions which would be in concert with others. In some cases, it may not be. So, implicit in your question was, a kind of, are you part of a larger strategy of counterbalancing? I don't think that is the case. I think India, there is a rise of India. Okay, I still argue, in the initial stages of a rise of India, but the rise of India may happen at a different speed, in a different dynamic, in a different nature, but I think 30, 40, 50 years from now, people will look back and say, okay, these guys also did something phenomenal in their rise. So I wouldn't reduce, ourselves to that. In terms of, what China does as a historical proposition, I don't think it's just in the Chinese history. I mean, I think it's in fact, an example which is much more quoted is that of Germany. That, could Germany, if you were to ask a hypothetical historical question, could Germany have, Wilhelmine Germany, handle the First World War very differently? That you actually had what was the strongest power of its times, which went and united a whole lot of other countries by their behavior. So there are examples. There are also examples of countries who have been very successful in managing the rise. The United States is one. The beauty of history is you pick the examples you want to do. So eventually political science determines which part of history you like. So I would be a little cautious on that score.
Very rarely do you have, as Foreign Affairs Minister, a practitioner with whom you can have a deep conversation about Chinese military text or the warring kingdoms or even German military history. And that is just fantastic, and that's really good for all of us as Indians to have, whether we agree or disagree with some of what you did, but to have someone as accomplished as you at the wheel of India's foreign affairs. This is the first time you've come in real life to an India Day conclave. You've shared some really sharp insights with what's going on in your mind and how you're calibrating India's foreign policy. And we deeply appreciate you having taken our time. Can we have a very warm round of applause for India's Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure listening to you over the last 45 minutes. Thank you, sir. India has always had to navigate a very complex neighborhood. But rarely before in time has our country had to face so many simultaneous global headwinds. From the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan to the PLA's military build-up along the line of actual control, the geostrategic risks to India are clear and present. The man responsible for charting the course of India's foreign affairs through these turbulent waters is a long-time practitioner in the fine art of diplomacy, considered by many in the foreign services as the finest of his generation. Dr. Jaishankar now has that rare opportunity to shape policy in his area of professional expertise. It's that sweet spot that lakhs of professionals dream about, but only the chosen few get to practice. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming for his conclave debut in New Delhi.